in the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano, and I'm a partnerships manager here at AllVoices, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm very excited to welcome our next guest onto the show, Karsten Vagner. He's the Vice President of People at Maven. Karsten, how's your day going?
Hi, Christina. My day's going really well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. I was just saying that I love your virtual background from Maven, but if you want to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself to start off, including your pronouns, what you do, and also when you were younger, how did you answer the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, okay, sure. So my name is Karsten Vagner. I'm the head of people, the VP of people at Maven Clinic. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And Maven Clinic is a wonderful place. We care a lot about family benefits, women's healthcare. We're the largest virtual clinic for women's and family health. When I was a kid, I have to be honest here. And I think it's important to be honest, especially for this conversation. When I was a kid, I wasn't asking myself so much what I want to be when I grow up. I was asking myself where I want to be. And the answer was often anywhere else. I grew up on Long Island in the 80s and early 90s, and I was just not I was not set up for success. Right? I was in a place where you had to be really good at sports, and I was really bad at sports, but very good at the clarinet, like Broadway show tunes. And so I was always looking for my people. I never really quite fit in where I was, and as a kid, I just kept thinking about where can I go where I feel like I can be myself and not be made fun of and feel welcome. And I think that's really informed the work that I do today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for your honesty. I definitely appreciate it. In our conversation, it's important to understand where people were, to understand how they got to today. So fast forward, you're leading the team at Maven Clinic.
Yeah.
How has your personal journey really led you up until this point at the company?
Yeah, I in a lot of ways I just kind of fell into people leadership and working in startups, but it just feels like this natural place given where I came from and the things that matter most to me. And we talk a lot about our whole selves at Maven. I know lots of companies talk about that, but we really mean it. We really mean it. We think about not only our employees, but we think about their families too, whatever that means to them. And kind of where you came from and how that informs who you are and how you show up every day at work. And so, like I said, I think I've always been on this journey of creating spaces where everyone feels welcome, where you can be that strange, unique version of yourself, because those are the things that make you the most special. And honestly, that's when you do your best work, when you feel your best too. And so I think about Maven as a place where we're creating an environment where people can come and really thrive. Maybe they haven't been in places where they have been able to do that before, because it's just part of our bedrock foundation of values. Come as you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like you're really passionate about the work that you're doing and the team that you're helping to create and scale as well. But this isn't the first time that you've helped scale teams at companies too. I know from your experience, you've worked at companies like Zocdoc growing from 3 to 500, AppNexus from 300 to 1,200, and it's a lot of folks. Do you believe that employees really need to love what they do in order to be successful?
No, I think that question probably overemphasizes what you do. And to take it back to what I was talking about earlier, you've got to love your life. I think you've got to love your life, and what you do is a part of your life. And what we talk about at Maven is your whole self, right? So things have got to be good at home, because if things are good at home, things are probably going to be good at work, right? And if things are not good at work, you probably bring that home, right?
Yeah.
And things aren't good at home either. And so you've got to find the balance for yourself. We all have to find the balances for ourselves to make sure things are great at home with our friends, our family, our kids, whatever it is, and at work too. Every single day, do you have to wake up and say, like, I love this thing I'm about to do? I don't think so. But you should be proud of the choices that you've made and the life that you're building for yourself. And if you're not, examine that, right? Start asking for different work or more challenging work or whatever it happens to be, if it's a work thing. or start asking yourself, my friends with the right people or in the right relationships or whatever it happens to be, I think they all blend together. And if you only focus on what you do, you're probably forgetting a lot of other things that really inform a lot of that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that answer as well, because you're right in terms of the question. It's really centering work and your job as your sole like identity marker, but that's just not the case. And I like the term work-life blend instead of balance, because again, everything's blending together. It's part of your full life, which I love as well.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, too often when we meet somebody new, we ask, what do you do? That's the first
Yeah,
thing we ask, right?
absolutely.
Ask something else. When was
Yeah.
the last time you read a good book or whatever,
Exactly, exactly. Well, I definitely love that. And I'll take that with me to the in-person networking events that we'll probably be going to in the future, which is helpful. I want to ask you some questions specifically about Maven Clinic and just the changes you've seen over this past year as well. With everything that we have going on, I wanted to know, like, what changes have you kind of made to your people strategy, and what changes do you see like long lasting past this year in terms of processes or benefits or any pivots you've made?
Well, I remember the day, March 10th, 2020, when
Yep.
I stood up in front of the company and told them, everybody go home. We think it's just for 2 weeks, but let's just go home. That was also the day that the people team at Maven basically ripped up our roadmaps and said, we have to start again, right? We have 10 new people starting next week. How do we onboard them remotely? All of that. So we've had to readjust in a lot of ways, not just tactical things like onboarding remotely, but much larger things like building a workforce of people we've never met.
Mhm.
How do you build an environment that people are willing to take a risk on without ever having shaken somebody's hand or seen in office? You better have a strong product, right? And a strong company culture in order to do something like that and make it stick, right? And then once you have all of those people at your company, how do you keep them? What kinds of programs matter to people who are working from home or locked away and not able to go outside? So our entire work strategy has changed. And lots of those things are going to continue being like this, right? But I don't think we'll ever go back to a 5-day work week or anything like that. But to answer your other question in terms of what have we learned, I think that even as a parent myself, and I have a 4.5-year-old who went through this pandemic with me and her other dad at the same time, and I think that what we've learned, and I've learned personally, is to really treat parents as a cohort, as a group that needs attention paid to them just as much as any other ERG or group within your workforce. And we know this because it's what we do, but even I had to really rethink this as parents were being asked to be parents, teachers, coaches, and employees all in the same minute, right? And so we spent a lot of time thinking about our own parents internally, how we were going to take care of them, what they needed. And that's something we're not going to let go of, because not only does it make our environment better, it makes our employees happier, it makes our product better too.
Absolutely. And parents are doing this in the same spaces that, they're sleeping and living and working, and it's all really in one space. And I know caretaking has been a huge conversation, and it seems like you're passionate about really supporting parents at Maven. Can you talk a little bit more about how you're supporting them at large?
Sure. You know what we're doing? It's this crazy novel thing. We're talking to them. You know, I don't think before the pandemic, we had actually sat down and said, who are all of our parents? Can we get them all on a call? And we
Mhm.
did that. And I remember it at the end of March 2020. We did it for the first time, got all of our parents together, and the look of relief on their faces just to be able to say, this is my community, right? Let's do a little venting here. Let's give each other some tips on how to get through the weekend or whatever it happens to be. Game changer, just to get them together and start asking simple, obvious questions like, what do you need right now? Because I think the worst thing we can do is guess, right? So we sat down, and each parent had distinct needs. Some people had newborns, some people had teenagers, right? So really different things. But that's how you start, by engaging groups, understanding where they are, and then meeting them where they are. And so we've been able to do that, creating parent groups, creating these forums for people to just talk and feel heard by my team and by the company. So we could really make sure that we were creating an environment and adjusting to their needs as their needs adjusted too over these past 15 months.
Absolutely. Meeting employees' needs where they are, meeting team members where they are. And like you said, the needs of a parent who has a newborn is very different than a teenager. It's very different than if you're caretaking for an elder, like parent, things like that. So if you have questions about how people are feeling, that's a good point. You just have to ask and hold a space and a place for them. If you fast forward, so you have all the feedback, you set up this kind of space for them to say, this is what we need, and you test things out. In these conversations, a lot of times it comes up, how do you measure ROI? How do you measure your success or the lack thereof? So when you're talking about your efforts to support working parents, how do you kind of think about that?
I'm going to give you the same answer. We ask. Right? So, and it's good timing that we're talking today because we just wrapped our last employee engagement survey.
Mm-hmm.
And Christina, I'll tell you, any way you slice that data, our parents at Maven are the most engaged group of people at the company, far and away. And Maven has partnered with Great Places to Work, the organization. And last year we did the largest survey ever of working parents, which was really exciting. We learned a ton of information. And one of the things that we learned is companies who are great places to work for parents end up becoming great places to work for everyone else. And there's data behind it. So if you look at great places to work for parents, their non-parents are more engaged, more excited about where they work by almost 10 points than at companies that aren't great places to work. And so at Maven, we really, really want to make sure that this is a great place to work for parents and all caretakers, because we know if we're investing in them, we're actually investing in everybody else too.
Absolutely. It permeates throughout the organization, and it just makes the company better, the product better, and people's lives just leveled up as well. I know, like, when you're kind of innovating and you are testing out new strategies or implementing new benefits, like not everything is going to work. So this question is more on the macro level, so not necessarily at Maven or any of your other experiences. So maybe what you're seeing in the news or just industry trends, but have you seen any kind of mistakes other companies have made in the past, or just folks who really had the best intentions to support working parents or caretakers, but initiatives ended up falling flat?
Yes, and yeah, I'm not like naming names or anything, but
Yeah.
I think the best intended things can fail if people weren't brought along or included from the start. And so when programs or benefits fail, it's because nobody asked the parents in advance what you're looking for, right? And that I think is the biggest issue. I can give you a small example of my own mistake. And it was the very beginning of the pandemic. I wondered out loud to my team, like, what if we just got everyone a Disney Plus subscription, right? What if we just did something like, wouldn't that keep the kids busy? So parents like, wouldn't that work? And like, of course that wouldn't work. That's not the answer, right? And so the answer was really like, sit down and talk to people and not guess, not presume, not assume, but just make this a collaborative effort. And I think if you don't do that, it might not succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that goes back to your earlier point as well, in terms of maybe like a Disney Plus subscription would work for, someone's child, but not everyone's child for a certain amount of time, but not assuming what people want. You have an opportunity to really bring people together and have a conversation, again, two-way. They give you your feedback and then you act on it as well. You mentioned earlier employee resource groups and just like working parents as a really important cohort of folks. And I wanted to kind of zoom out to talk about Maven's diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, goals, and initiatives. What is like the thought process behind that at Maven today?
Sure. We're really proud of the work that we've done because it's been collaborative, because it's been largely led by employees and not this kind of top-down prescriptive strategy. So we basically asked our employees, what would you like to see us do? What should Maven be doing, in the next 3, 6, and 12 months? What would you like to see? And we got such incredible feedback, hundreds of ideas, and just really, really insightful things. And so then we got people together and talked to them. This is almost 2/3 of the company. We got on this call and said, all right, here's what you told us, right? And we think that they fall into 5 themes. So here are the 5 themes. Do these sound right? And we had some discussion about each theme. And those themes ended up turning into working groups. So now at Maven, we have 5 different working groups around diversity, equity, and inclusion, some around people, right? We don't call it recruiting because it's not just about hiring. It's also about promotions, wage gaps, policies, all of that. So there's a people working group, we have a product working group as well, and then partnerships, education, member experience, all these kinds of things that our employees are passionate about driving. They have great ideas. And we built a 12-month roadmap with goals for each quarter, some accountability for ourselves that we shared with the rest of the company, our executive team, and the board as well. And one of the ones we're most proud of as a team is being really honest and transparent about our employee representation. So if you go to our careers page, you'll see how Maven looks today based on how people identify. And it was a real challenge to find any kind of benchmark. I don't think other companies of our size and stage do this. And it's not to say that we're perfect. We have plenty of work to do, but we think that the first step in improving is transparency and accountability. So those are the real values around our D&I work, and really proud of the progress we've made in each of our groups and will continue to do over time.
Yeah, I think that working groups really contribute to company culture and make folks feel like they belong at a company. And also, if it's employee led too, there's a sense of ownership as well. An opportunity to grow and being supported by leadership is also really important. You mentioned just like, starting with these initiatives, and of course, diversity, equity, inclusion is like a long-term commitment. Things don't happen overnight, but there are things that people can start doing today, tomorrow, or more immediately to make folks feel like they belong. And part of that is using inclusive language.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've seen, over on social, like I saw a quote from you that you've spent over the last 5 years crossing out mom on medical forums and writing in, second dad. Like, can you talk about inclusive language and how you incorporate that thinking into Maven?
You bet. So that's an easy one when it comes to inclusive language. And I feel so lucky that it's not me alone who has to be this kind of voice in the wilderness, reminding everyone about inclusive language. This is built into our product. When you have a family benefit for your employees, you want to make sure you're including every family, that every family feels welcome. And so part of our diversity and inclusion work actually was inclusive language. And it came from our employees who said, hey, let's make sure that in our product, in our largest network of telemedicine providers for women's and family health, we're using inclusive language, we're using inclusive imagery and being really thoughtful and welcoming to all families. And we did just that. And it's not to say we're perfect. I'm sure there's room to improve everywhere, but this is a company-wide initiative that doesn't just affect our employees in their day-to-day, but the millions of families that we serve as a family benefit.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And you notice when inclusive language, especially when you're someone who notices that on forums or you have to do that on a daily basis, it makes a huge difference in your life as well in the processes. And I think it says something when you're modeling that behavior from across the company too. It's not just your responsibility, it's everybody's responsibility to really provide that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when we introduce our new hires to the company, for instance, at our weekly team meetings, we introduce every new hire. It doesn't take much. On the slide, we've got their photo, their name, and their pronouns. Mm-hmm. It's maybe 10 seconds to put that in on the slide, and it means the world to some people. It really does. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
So we're I'm not patting myself on the back. We've got plenty of work to do, but I think these small things, people leaders could be thinking about.
Yeah, I think there are plenty of things to be thinking about, and it sounds like you're doing incredible work in terms of the product and people and thinking about a bunch of different initiatives that are part of an intentional strategy. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up burnout and mental health of employees too. I wanted to ask like how you really support the mental well-being of folks at Maven. I know you mentioned you support the whole being of an employee at Maven, but specifically wanted to ask about that.
Sure. One of the best things that we offer to our own employees is our product. So we say we drink our own champagne at Maven. Maven is not just a product that has OBGYNs, reproductive endocrinologists. We also have mental health coaches, other mental health providers, career coaches for return to work for employees, but career coaches in general. And so we remind our employees that they have this benefit, that they can make their own appointments on Maven for free and meet with our many of our different providers to help them. But then we take it a step further, and we actually invite our providers to come in and hold sessions with our employees. So it's very common for us to have career coaches come in before talent review season and talking to your manager about your career development. Or when it comes to burnout specifically, we actually just had a session, company-wide session, with a coach who focuses specifically on burnout, who comes from Maven's network. And she gave everybody really actionable tips on how to think about balancing their work, balancing their life, and all those different kinds of obligations. I wish I could tell you that we found the silver bullet to solve burnout, but we have not, right? I think a lot of burnout tends to come from being on lean teams with a lot of work, especially at Maven right now, we're just growing so much. The biggest answer to that is to hire. And we are hiring so much at Maven today. And so it's a reminder too, to our employees that sometimes the way to get out of burnout is to bring on more people to the team. I'm so proud that our employees take that to heart and refer a lot of employees to the company and a lot of candidates to the employees, to the company, because we've got a lot of hiring to do. And that's one way to combat burnout as well.
Yeah, that's the one resource you can't make more of is time, but it's really
Yeah.
helpful to make more of it by adding more people to the team and helping with
Yes.
bandwidth and workload. And I think that is definitely important. And the other piece to the answer I heard you say is you're bringing in subject matter experts, whether that's career coaches or folks externally to speak, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to have all the answers, but there are so many partnerships that can be had as well. So I love that. Two, I know that feedback, you mentioned a couple of your answers, is really important, but people are bringing in all of these different experiences when you grow a team and you're bringing on new folks. Maybe you have the best company culture, but people are bringing in these thoughts of, at my last company, they didn't really value feedback. I don't know how to give it here. How do you really promote that culture of psychological safety in the workplace at Maven?
Thank you for asking that question. And you are so right that a lot of people who come to Maven are influenced by where they'd worked before.
Yeah.
And it really makes an impact on our environment, because at Maven, 70% of our company are female. And I think 65 or 70% of our managers are female. Our CEO is a mom. She just came back from maternity leave. Our board is majority female too. We have a different kind of culture. I don't know many other startups who only have 18% white men. And so a lot of people who are drawn to Maven and our mission are coming from places where they didn't feel heard, or maybe they were shut down in a meeting or spoken over, or someone took credit for their idea, or all these kinds of things that we know happen more to women of color than anyone else in the workplace. And so the tone we try to set here is, we're different. This is a different kind of place, right? We're collaborative. We recognize each other's accomplishments. We say thank you. We don't interrupt. It's a really different kind of environment. And so when you create a place that feels safe and feels so different from where others have come from, that feedback kind of comes naturally, because suddenly everybody just feels like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. I didn't know it could be like this. And so that sense of safety kind of starts on day one at Maven. We're really proud of that.
Yeah, and those daily actions or weekly actions as well, and the modeling from leadership, managers, and the team is just, it's so important to building that foundation of trust and psychological safety. So little things like saying thank you, and a big one, in my opinion, of not interrupting that you said is huge to creating that space. So I definitely think that's important.
Thank you. We're trying every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Zooming out again to just like trends you're seeing in the industry, is there something that folks should be aware of in the people and talent space in order to be successful in the future, whether it's individuals or companies, like something they need to hone in on for the future of work?
I said it before a little bit, but I really do mean it, that I think that parents as a group have been overlooked, caregivers as a group have been overlooked, and they need more attention paid. That's why I chose to work at Maven, because I recognize the value of family benefits. And I think that family benefits in general are the trend right now, because it's not just, well, now we've been through this pandemic and our health has been affected, et cetera, but what are all the effects after? I think the next crisis that's coming is parents worried about their kids and what they lost in this time and catching up in school, right? And so imagine being a parent like that and still trying to focus on your work and get that done too. Wouldn't it be better to be a company that says, hey, parents, I see where you are and I see the struggles you're going through, And here's what I'm going to offer you. I'm going to offer you some kind of benefit that gives you parenting advice, gives you coaches and all these types of things to help you at home, because we know if things are good at home, things are going to be good at work too.
Yeah, absolutely. When things are good at home and maybe that's your workspace also,
Yeah.
um, that's also super important. And we want to make sure that we're defining all of the kind of things we're talking about and not assuming for our listeners too. So in terms of, you mentioned family benefits, could you provide just like one or two examples of what you mean by that, so we're all on the same kind of page in terms of terminology?
Sure. When I think about family benefits, I think about what we offer at Maven. We offer
Mhm.
the largest network of providers for women's and family health. That
Mhm.
means that if you're looking for an appointment with an OBGYN, someone who can help you think about fertility, someone who can help you think about adoption, surrogacy, or egg freezing, or someone who can help you think about coming back to work after having been on parental leave, or someone who can help you think about navigating parenting in this new world. These are all different kinds of benefits that your company could offer you. And these are all the kinds of benefits that we offer to our own employees at Maven. And we see the results every day when people come in and say, God, I'm so grateful I have this.
Amazing. That, yeah, that definitely makes sense. And it sounds like you're talking about the before, middle, and after of if you're thinking about family planning or having a child as well, and really supporting folks, again, in that cohort, which is really important of working parents. I wanted to ask in terms of feedback, either that you received throughout your career or at Maven, what is the best and maybe worst or not so great piece of feedback you've ever been given?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Curveball. I think the best pieces of feedback I've received are when people really see me in a way that I don't see myself. Those end up being the most helpful, right? When I walk away saying, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know I was putting that out there, or I didn't know that someone could interpret this thing that I said that way. That I think ends up being the most helpful. And that means that that feedback was specific, right? I think the best feedback is specific with examples. So I can kind of be there too. The worst feedback is the opposite. When it's just kind of this general thing um, that I'm left wondering, like, is that real? Like, where's that coming from? What motivated that? You're giving me kind of a statement and not an example. Um, so those, when I think about great feedback and not great feedback, it's like what is useful to me and what is not useful. And the useful stuff is when I can walk away saying like, I'm going to change, or I've learned this thing, and that I welcome all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's constructive, actionable, maybe a little bit challenging, but examples are also really helpful, not just broad brush statements that either really positive or really negative. And I think it goes back to trust too, in terms of who you're receiving it from, whether it's your manager, a peer, someone new, or who's been at the company for a while. So I definitely.
True. That said, I'd say some of the best feedback comes from the most unexpected places. So if you only go to the people you trust, you might be limiting what you could hear. So it's nice to broaden and welcome feedback from all corners, because you never know what you're going to learn.
Absolutely. Proactively asking for it as well. Someone might not be able to know that you want that piece of feedback or you value their advice or opinion too. So I love that as well.
Thanks.
Yeah. Is there anything that I either didn't ask that you want to share to close out our conversation, or just, one or two key takeaways that you hope our listeners take with them as they listen to our conversation?
Sure. I guess the one thing that I just want to reiterate a little bit, well, two things, if it's okay.
Yeah.
So first one is that I actually just got off an interview with a candidate. The
Mhm.
candidate asked me about parental leave, and then just kind of flexibility with schedule. And just reflecting and preparing for this conversation today, it just made me think about how we need to do better when it comes to supporting our parents and our caregivers and our families, because the candidate was the perfect illustration. That's all we think about, right? When you're assessing a company, well, what's the leave policy? And can I, duck out for the dance recital or a t-ball game or whatever? When I think caregivers, parents deserve much more than that. And they're not even asking for it because it's so rare. And so I think that really supporting families, and we have the data now to prove it, changes your business. It changes your engagement and retains people. So that I just think is societally something for us to really focus on. I know as a people leader, there's certain things I need to have when I join a company. Right? I need to have a place to keep the resumes. I need to have a place to think about benefits, et cetera. But I wish that more people leaders would start thinking about, I know I need to support our families. I know I need to support our moms specifically. So that's one thing. The second thing, if it's okay, we are hiring like gangbusters at Maven right now. And I just want anyone listening to know that if you care about women's and family health, if this is a mission that's interesting to you, if you've ever never worked at a company that is majority female, led by a mom of 3, no less, it's just a different environment. I'd love for you to come check it out, and you can find me on LinkedIn or find us anywhere. But we're a special place, and I'd love to tell you more about it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, those are 2 great key takeaways from our conversation. I will throw you one additional question just on that note. If people are listening and thinking, oh, I definitely want to apply, do you have a favorite interview question that you ask people?
Well, if I told you, then they'd all know and be able to prepare.
Exactly. One of
You know
your
what?
favorites.
You know what I love to know? Honestly, when I talk to people, I love to understand the stuff that's not on the resumes, so the stuff
Yeah,
that's in between the companies. Why did you choose this thing? Why are you talking to us now? What have you been looking for? And how can I help you find it? Right? Those are the kinds of things I ask in different ways. But that's what I love to hear people's motivators, because you end up learning so much.
absolutely. And I think that goes back to what you said initially of the full person, the full employee, and the full team member as well, and why they come to work every day too. It's a piece of their story. So, Karsten, thank you so much for being on Reimagining Company Culture. I really enjoyed meeting and speaking with you.
Thank you. It's been so nice to talk to you. We really appreciate you giving us the time and space, and hope to get to talk again sometime. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you for all the work you're doing at Maven Clinic and your team. And as a reminder, for folks who are listening, AllVoices believes in the empowerment of everyone at an organization to speak up, and we think it's a requirement for the company to succeed. We'll speak soon.